This week, I was bored, so I made this very simple simulation of the economy, and yeah, in this video, I'll be explaining how it works, and then I will also be looking over two simulations I run and seeing what comes of them. So, first things first is let's take a look at the code. So, here is the main function that initializes all of the arrays that are necessary. So creates all the people, creates all the buildings, and creates the three main companies that fight for resources and money, basically. Well, they don't really fight considering they're all part of the same chain. However, oftentimes it does end up that one of these companies falls and sometimes even pulls the entire economy down with it. So this for loop loops over the 2000 years I have defined here, and it usually does them in quarters, so it's better for simulations. So we've got a little bit more detail. However, it's not really necessary. And run step is really simple. It shuffles the companies and then over it loops over all the companies and steps them, makes them step. Company step. It checks if the company is bankrupt, then updates itself, which is basically going over all the buildings a company owns, updating them, and setting the new capital to the capital that is given by the update function. Then it checks once again if it is bankrupt. Checks if the bankrupt flag is set to true. If it isn't, it earns money, which does absolutely nothing. I haven't implemented that. Then it pays wages, which, loops over the buildings. Each building pays its own wages, and that's basically it. Then it orders and sells materials it has in a very simple function that loops over all the buildings, checks what each building needs, then loops over what it actually has, calculates the surplus or not enough, and then it creates a listing if it has more than it needs, or it buys a listing if unless there isn't any. So that's this check here. The next step is checking bankruptcy. Again, this time it's the actual function that sets the bankrupt flag, and if the company has less than zero capital, it will declare bankruptcy, set the bankrupt flag to true, and remove itself from the company's list. If, however, it is no longer bankrupt, however, it used to be, it says that it was bought out, and then it sets the bankrupt flag to false because it's still available. Then we make changes to the company. And make changes basically changes for how much more we want to sell and for how much more we want to buy. So, if the market price of something is, let's say, 5 and our buy change is slightly over 5, we will offer for the listing slightly more than the market price, slightly modifying it in the process. Sell change works the same, however it is for selling. So if I'm selling something for 5 per unit and sell change is 2, is 2, then it cost me just 2.5 to make. So that's how it works. And that's basically the entire loop. So now that I'm done with the code, let's look over one of these tests that I just run. That was the test in the beginning of this video. So first thing to notice is that there is 2000 years of simulation, of simulated time. And over those 2000 years, the net worth skyrocketed from 1000 to nearly 5, to over 5 million. No, yeah, to over 5 million. Sometimes even more. If we look at Alpha Company here, Alpha Incorporated, we can see that it's at 258 million. So there's clearly more profit in ore than in metal, which was even seen in the graph in the beginning of the video. So, first thing it would be obvious to look for is for declarations of bankruptcies. However, thankfully, there are none. because that would be pretty bad. We should also, so it was really a normal simulation. Companies continuously climbed up, maybe occasionally falling slightly due to paying their employees a kind of good wage, considering they're paying 10 per quarter, so that's 40 per year. Over the first year, nothing much really happened, except the fact that Beta LLC really is behind Gamma and Alpha due to the design of the process. So alpha sells to both gamma and beta, so it grows a lot. Gamma sells for double the market price of metal and ore, so it sells all it buys. And beta LLC only converts ore to metal, meaning that it has slightly lower production than others, and it also rarely gets more money because it, loses some. Now, if we jump over to, I don't know, year 50, we can see that the company net worths are really high, the capitals, right? Alpha Inc. is at 158,000, Beta LLC is only 25, and Gamma is also 160,000. So it's clear that Gamma and Alpha are the leaders in the market, and they're the ones really keeping up the average net worth in the graph to really high, and Beta is really keeping it low, and it's earning. However, it's not earning as much as it should, or as much as it could. We can also see that here, where the market is printed, we can see that the price per unit of metal, which is processed ore, is about 10 units more than the cost of ore. However, the amount of metal is way lower, being only 46 compared to 400. So, jumping up to, I don't know, 500, we can see that Alpha is once again selling huge amounts of ore and actually quite kind of cheap, while Beta is only selling 7 metal. And I mean, yes, they did buy 45 metal just last turn. However, it's not really that much. You can clearly see that metal is less profitable in this case. However, due to the randomness of the simulation, or pseudo-randomness, it can change. It can sometimes lead to Beta LLC even declaring bankruptcy at some point and kind of continuing the simulation with only 2 competitors, leaving it really hard to, well, making it so that they grow to absurd values. So, let's run another simulation and see where that gets us. So, as we can see from these, no company has gone bankrupt quite yet because there is no sudden jumps in the average net worth. We can also see some vertical lines. These vertical lines are basically where there wasn't any of that material in the market. So these orange vertical lines mean that there wasn't any metal in the market, and these blue vertical lines mean that there was no ore in the market. We've got some really good growth. I think it's starting to slow down here, but I'm not sure. It's been growing for so long. Now we can also see that there's a peak of metal price, maybe around 1100s in the 1100s. There's also one around the year 500, and afterwards it drops down really far near the year 2000 and then slowly climbs back up, as clearly shown, or also keeps on a steady level of about 10. But what's surprising is that metal drops to basically zero at some point, and it's all natural, it's random, but So, let's see. Let's see the year. Yep, 6. Is it this? Yep, it's still falling. 5, 540. And I think that's the minimum it went to. Then we can even look closer and see that it fell down to, that's -1. However, the lowest price is about 0. It fell down to 0. The price of metal was quite literally 0. That is surprising. However, shouldn't be any company there shouldn't be any declaration yep, there aren't any declarations of bankruptcy, so that means that it was kind of stable. And comparably, I think they even have higher net worths than previously, because in the end, Alpha LLC has 400 million. Beta LLC is also quite high, where it no, that's Gamma. Beta LLC is, 6 million. That's quite good in comparison to what happened last time. And I think the fact that they had quite a lower price of metal might have influenced that, but And looking at the graph a little bit more, uh, we can see that ore is stable because it's only influenced by the employee wages and the cell change. However, metal price is a lot more unstable because it's inherently influenced by ore price. So when ore price goes up, so does metal price. However, metal price is also influenced by the other companies' employee wages and also their cell change. So this spike means that there was quite a high increase in cell change, and because there was also an increase in ore price, that means that it's, understandable. So let's check the year on this. This is around the year 1130, maybe like 1128. So that's here. And we can see that it's 48 per unit. And that's still 48 per unit. Beta LLC is really, really high cost. 49, do we have anything higher? It's 49.26, 49.32. I'm not sure if it actually, no, it didn't reach 50. However, it was incredibly high, and I think it's one of the higher ones I've ever seen, so that's something. We've also got one here in around the year 478.5. Why 478.5? That's this. Where we're selling for 48.86, which is also really high. However, due to the fact that Beta LLC also fights for resources with Gamma because they're sharing the same ore provider, that is Alpha, that means that Beta LLC is earning way less than it should. If Gamma Ltd didn't buy the ore, then Beta LLC would probably buy it first. Anyway, that's it for this week, and I'll see you next week, I hope.